If you're a PA and you're trying to figure out how to take your income to 150K, 200K, and even more, I'm going to show you the steps in getting there in this video. Most people think that knowing their salary and maximizing it is the key, but that number will actually lie to you in at least 3 different ways. I'm Kristen Burton, a critical care PA, and I increased my income to 200K with my primary W-2 job within 3.5 years of clinical practice, and then leveraged that to become a millionaire at 31. Now, by the way, if you want free education on how to build wealth as a medical professional, make sure you click below to get access to the Millionaires in Medicine Club for free. Let's dive into what it looks like to maximize your income as a PA. The first step in maximizing your income is actually understanding what you earn. Most people get really tripped up on salary when what you should be evaluating is total compensation, because there is a big difference between being a 1099 employee and earning 160K with absolutely no benefits whatsoever, and being a salaried employee earning 160K with large retirement contributions and profit sharing bonuses and HSA contributions as well. So the key piece you need to know is total compensation. And the only way to figure that out is to actually be intentional about calculating what your entire benefit package entails. I go through things like gross wages, which in many cases is salary, bonuses, profit sharing, retirement contributions, health savings account contributions, CME allowance, professional fees covered, professional attire covered like white coats, medical malpractice insurance paid for, professional subscriptions, and even go so far as to calculate of all of your benefits, medical, vision, dental, long-term disability, all those pieces, what is your employer actually paying towards that on your behalf? That is your total compensation, and that is what you want to maximize. Having a high salary is only a small piece of the puzzle. Now, I'm going to talk mostly about salary today, but keep in the back of your mind that you should really be considering what is my all-in compensation and how do I maximize that? Well, one of the first pieces is to go work for a high-paying specialty, right? You can pull lots of data on this. AAPA posts their salary report. They have data on this. It's available on salary.com and all sorts of other places. But the top paying subspecialties for PAs are cardiovascular, cardiothoracic surgery, dermatology or aesthetics, emergency medicine, occupational medicine, critical care, hey, psychiatry, and other surgical subspecialties. Now, of course, some of these fields are notorious for having flexible work options, and some are notorious for high burnout rates, right? We're all familiar with the fact that the emergency department, orthopedic surgery, some of these high-paying subspecialties are also associated with high burnout. That's a decision you can weigh for yourself when deciding if this is a good move for you. And some of them are notorious for having flexible work options, even remote options, and maybe working 4 days a week instead of 5. You can find the blend that works for you. And of course, you have to have a clinical interest in what you do. Otherwise, you're not going to be exceptional at it. And to be honest, even if you snag a high-paying job, it's hard to keep a high-paying job if you're not exceptional at the job. So there's more to determining a specialty than just the pay. But if you have an interest in a high-paying specialty, you can get in, maximize your skill set, maximize the value that you bring to the organization you work for, and then continue to drive that starting high salary up even further as you continue to add value to the team. Now, of course, there are industry positions that you can also explore as a PA that will pay a lot of times a lot more than clinical jobs do. And this is one example of a non-clinical role. There are a lot of non-clinical roles you can pursue, many of which are high paying and very flexible. But an MSL is a common transition for PAs, pharmacists, nurse practitioners to go into when they want a non-clinical transition. And for nationwide numbers, the starting MSL salary is 157K for someone with no experience. and an experienced or senior MSL may have a base closer to 200K. Now, the thing about these positions is that they often have very lucrative bonus structures and other forms of compensation that stack on top of this base to create a salary or a total compensation, I should say, that well exceeds the 200K mark. So, if you have an interest in industry and you have some clinical experience and the ability to network your way into one of these positions or, break down the doors applying, this can be a fantastic way for you to take yourself from a situation where maybe you're burnt out, feeling like you're not earning enough, move into a new role that utilizes the education that you have and the clinical skills you have in a totally different way and earn a heck of a lot more money doing it. Now, of course, your location matters as well, but you can get tricked with this clickbaity stuff of, oh, go move here, work here because you'll get paid more. I'll show you why. These are the top paying states for PAs. We're not surprised to see Washington, California, Alaska, Connecticut, Nevada. What do these top states have in common? They have a high cost of living. Yes, we all kind of intuitively know this. If we look at the top paying cities in the US for PAs, San Jose, California, Napa, California. If you are a wine enthusiast like myself, that may outweigh all of the things, and you go immediately, yes, okay. San Francisco, California, and then you see two others. Now, I'm going to show you a quick example of what this actually looks like when you play it out. Because you look at San Jose and you say, oh, 172K is the average salary of a PA there. That's incredible. Like, let me book a flight now. When do we move? But let's not forget how big of a role cost of living can play when determining how important this is. Because remember, what we ultimately all want isn't like just a high number. We want a good lifestyle, right? We want the ability to build wealth, to deal with our student loan debt, and still have like a lot of fun and be traveling and be dining out and not living a beans and rice life to do it. And so the question isn't necessarily always what's the number? It's like, what does the number get me? Can I still invest 40% of my income and like go out and travel and have fun? Because if so, that's way cooler to me than being able to say, like, I hit 200K, right? But if you were here, let's say you're in San Jose, this is your base 172K. Maybe you negotiate, maybe you get some bonuses, maybe you pick up a few extra shifts. You can find yourself at the 200K mark very, very easily. But what does that get you? So this is NerdWallet's cost of living calculator comparison. And I looked at what does it look like to have that salary in San Jose, do 172K, compared to a random city in Indiana, okay, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So to maintain the same standard of living between those two places, the Fort Wayne person only requires a salary of $90,000 per year. Which you're like, man, that seems pretty low. I'm guessing the PAs in Fort Wayne are probably not earning $90,000 a year. Well, you would be correct because this is data from salary.com for PAs in Fort Wayne, Indiana, showing that the median salary is actually $112,000. So that tells you that cost of living plays a pretty big role because even though the San Jose number may look really good on paper and make you feel like, wow, I'm earning a lot of money, the person living in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with a salary of $112,000 actually has more ability to build wealth while enjoying life because they have more discretionary income than the person in San Jose. So as you think about this, remember, it's not only, salary, of course, it's total compensation, but even beyond that, it's not just what is the number. It is what is a number paired with my cost of living and what kind of lifestyle does it get me? If you earn more money than me and you live in New York City and I live in Indiana, I don't really care. It might end up being totally equal. But if I earn more money than you in Indiana that you make in New York, we got a problem, right? Because your cost of living is much, much, much higher than mine. This is very frequently missed. And I've worked with a lot of new graduates who feel like, oh, I just can't get ahead. I'm earning like what I would consider a decent salary for a new PA, but I live in Denver or Boston or, the Bay Area. And it's like, you actually effectively make a lot less money than what you think. Because even though the number sounds good, and the number might have been the same as Sarah from your class that graduated and went and moved to Idaho, your effective incomes, your discretionary incomes are not even close to the same. So, if you're someone who wants to do this well, the first thing you need to do is learn how to negotiate. Because whether or not you get the offer you want out of the gate, you should never leave the table without some type of negotiation, even if it is nothing more than practice, right? And let's not forget that once you've negotiated salary, you can negotiate non-salary compensation, and you can also negotiate lifestyle perks. All three avenues are ways for you to improve your overall situation at work, right? Whether or not it's direct compensation, it ends up being compensation, because if the lifestyle perks allow you to work for an additional 10 years without experiencing burnout, well, you make a lot more money that way. Next, be willing to change jobs. I've never been able to find PA specific data on this, but across the board data says if you change jobs, you can anticipate a salary increase of somewhere in the 5 to 10% range. Now, if you look at PA specific data, the average salary increase year over year, if you stay in the same job, is 2 to 3%. So you can see very quickly how changing jobs would allow you to scale your income quickly. Now, if we're having a conversation about professional mentorship and skill development, and is that the right move for you? That's a whole nother ballgame, right? We're just talking about money here. And if we're only talking about money, changing jobs will get you there faster. The last thing I'll say is you need to understand the billing and the business side of medicine. Because at the end of the day, every single time that you go into a meeting and you say, here I am, a clinician, I'm going to expect this salary in return for my work, this is a business arrangement. And they have to make money, right? And then they have to pay you with less than what they earn from you. The more you understand that, the more you can learn to align yourself with your employer's goals, find ways to increase revenue, and ultimately make yourself more profitable so that your compensation can be higher and it can genuinely be a win-win situation for both parties. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not end this by saying, I don't care how much money you make. If you don't build assets, you will always be broke, okay? You have to take the advice here, increase your income, and then use that increased income to go around and build some assets so that you're not forever reliant on the job. And at some point, you can reduce hours, take the sabbatical, or even full-blown retire early because you have created the assets to take care of your expenses instead of always relying on the job to take care of your expenses. As a final note, your employer type matters. It's really difficult to negotiate a huge pay increase in salary at a major academic medical center or large hospital institution, or if you're working within a union. Private practices that lend themselves to a rev share model, like dermatology or psychiatry, often have the opportunity for you to earn far more in base salary. But don't forget, many of these nonprofit academic medical centers will qualify you for public service loan forgiveness, or these smaller institutions that maybe pay less in primary care, for example, may qualify for state-sponsored forgiveness programs. That's the third way that the salary will lie to you. The first is ignoring non-salary compensation. The second is ignoring cost of living index adjustments. And the third is ignoring student loan benefits that you might be receiving from that position. If you're saving $127,000 on your student loan total cost of repayment because of your current job, changing jobs to a position where you make $5,000 more per year but lose that student loan benefit has a very long break-even point and is likely not favorable to you in increasing your overall wealth, even though it would technically increase your overall salary.